You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm your host and resident career expert, Todd Bermont, and we are coming to you live from beautiful downtown Conroe, Texas, here on irlonestar.com, 104.5, 106.1 on the FM dial. For those of you in Montgomery County, there's a Kids Fest this weekend, and there is going to be all sorts of great stuff in store, so come on down to beautiful downtown Conroe. There's not a more gorgeous place on the planet. So today I am really excited. We are going to have a fun guest. We're going to banter back and forth here on Your Career. But before we dive into our special guest today, first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to cover some of the data as it relates to the job search market. And, I've been really optimistic all year. We've had fantastic data until this week. And still, it's not awful data that happened this week, but I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit. President Trump was elected, and there was a lot of optimism around what he wants to do as far as lowering taxes and as far as lowering regulations and different reforms. And Congress has been fighting the president every step of the way on this agenda. And it's time that folks in Congress get down to work and get some of this stuff taken care of here, because all this bantering back and forth and all the fake news that's out there and all the purposeful roadblocks that are being put in front of the president, it's starting to have a negative impact on this economy. And it's time that those of you in Congress, if any of you are listening to this program, it's time to start doing your job for once and get some of this agenda passed. Because the GDP numbers this quarter were really rough. And that's because none of this stuff got passed. And now people are starting to think, maybe we should rein our spending in a little bit. So the GDP had terrible growth at a 0.7% annual rate for the quarter. That's awful. It's the worst number in 3 years. And then coupled with that, on the weekly unemployment report, we also saw that the numbers rose as far as people filing unemployment claims over the past week. It rose to about 245,000 people. So we're still under that 300,000 mark, which is good, but it was an increase of close to 20,000 people from the previous week, and I don't like to see that. So folks in Congress, get your act together and start getting something done for once in a positive fashion. So I'll get off my soapbox now, and now that I've probably offended half the listening audience here, but let's talk about careers, all right? So as those of you that, well, first of all, a lot of you may be wondering, who am I? I am Todd Bermont, author of 10 Insider Secrets to a Winning Job Search, and I'm also the Director of Sales and Marketing for Evolve out of Houston, and we plan, design, and build data centers. And so every week we have a question of the week. And this week's question is from Mary. And Mary's wondering, she's feeling a sense of optimism that she can get a better job. And but she's currently got a job, and she's wondering, how do I balance interviewing while I have a job? And because she's had a difficult time getting time off, obviously you can't go to your current boss and say, hey, can I have an hour off so I can go on an interview? Obviously you can't do that, right? So Mary was really struggling with that, and she posed that question of the week. And, this is a tough call. Some folks will take days off of work. But one of the things I recommend is set up an early breakfast interview. A lot of folks, their day will not have gotten away from them if you meet with them first thing in the morning, like for a 7 o'clock in the morning breakfast interview. And that's not going to interfere with your current job. And people that are looking to hire folks, they'll be respectful of the fact that you have a job In fact, they'll respect the fact that you don't want to miss the time on the job and that you're looking to, work it in so you don't impact your performance on the job. So my biggest suggestion on that is to try for an early morning breakfast interview. If you can't get a breakfast interview, see if you can get like a 4:30 or 5 o'clock interview towards the end of the day, and maybe come in early and start your workday a little bit early and leave a little bit late. But it is a tough balance when it comes to balancing the job search while you have a job. But it's so important, you're collecting a paycheck from your current job, and it's important to be respectful to your current employer, and prospective employers will understand that. So with that, a lot of people have asked me over the years. They've said, Todd, how do I find my dream job, and how can I find a dream job? And I'm really excited today because last week I got to know Jake the Intern here at the radio station, and I was talking to Jake afterwards, and he was just, first of all, he did an incredible job producing the show last week, and we had a lot of fun. And he's producing the show today, and we're going to put him on the spot a little bit. But I was really curious because Jake's just so passionate about what he's doing, and it'd be great if everybody can have that same level of passion that Jake has. So I thought it would be really beneficial for the audience to get to know Jake today and how he landed in this career opportunity and how he chose to get into radio and all those kinds of things. So, Jake, I'd like to welcome you to the program.
Hi, guys. Thank you, Todd.
Well, first of all, Jake, I was wondering if you could tell folks a little bit about yourself, because, not everybody thinks to go into radio or has the guts to do it. So tell us a little bit about your background and where you came from and the schooling you got and how you got to this point.
I'm in Texas, born and raised. I'm ninth generation Texas, and so I take a lot of pride in that. But I was born and raised in Katy, Texas, so local Houston area. And I don't know. I've always been outgoing and eccentric, and I've always loved people, and so I kind of had the dream in high school that, look, I want to do something in broadcasting. And I kind of lost sight of that my freshman year and went to LSU and studied to be a petroleum engineer major. But as I was going through the classes and through the lifestyle of an engineer, I just said, look, this isn't for me. I can't do this. And so I decided, look, I'm going to come home and I'm going to pursue what I've always wanted to do, which was something in broadcasting and mainly radio. I enjoy, my brothers joke with me all the time. They say, oh, yeah, Jake, you've got the face for radio.
Yeah, my wife says the same thing about me.
So, yeah, and then I ended up at Sam Houston University studying at a great university with awesome professors. And, so I love it.
So how did Sam Houston compare to LSU? I have to ask this question because my boss at Evolve happened to play football for LSU, and so he's a big LSU fanatic, you might say. So I'm curious how the two schools compared.
Well, I mean, you're going from a major D1 school that's got, X amount of thousands of kids, and I had a class my freshman year in an auditorium, and I was one of 800.
Wow.
And my largest class at Sam Houston, I was one of 150. So, I mean, you look at, and that's about the average class, or the largest class size that you're going to see at Sam. So, I mean, just the attention that you get from your professors based on class sizes is, I mean, much, much different between the two.
Sam Houston, if you're listening, it's time to be a sponsor on this show. In fact, that's a good point, a good time to bring out the fact that those of you that are interested in sponsoring this wonderful content week after week, we are looking for some sponsors. So definitely reach out to me, T. Bermont at irlonestar.com. So getting back to our interview with Jake, and in fact, I'm curious. So how long ago did you finish up at Sam Houston?
Well, no, so I'm actually still at Sam.
Oh, you're still at Sam
Yeah,
Houston.
I'm still at Sam, so I'm getting ready to go into my senior year.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm really excited.
So is it tough balancing being in college and producing at a radio station at the same time as an intern? I mean, that's got to be challenging.
I mean, it is, but it's just like any other. I mean, I'm not the only one who does this, and especially at Sam, I know there's a large population there that that go to school and work, part-time or even full-time. And it's just one of those things that at the end of the day, at the end of that journey of college, and you get that piece of paper and you have landed that job that you've been, working so hard towards, it just all pays off, and it's so worth it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can't think of a better resume stuffer than being a producer right here for IRLoneStar.com. And when we're going to go to a break shortly here, but when we come back from the break, I really want to dive in and learn more about how you found out about this opportunity, if you went out and created the opportunity, or how you found out about it and how you did your resume and all those kinds of good things. So you are currently listening to Your Career with Todd Bermont on IRLoneStar.com, 104.5, 106.1. Stay tuned.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at IRLoneStar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Welcome back to Your Career. I'm your host and resident career expert, Todd Bermont, and we are coming to you live on IRLoneStar.com, 104.5, 106.1, and also we are on iTunes, we are on Google Play, and if you got a question of the week, check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/yourcareer. So today on our program, we have Jake the Intern. And I guess I didn't realize that Jake was actually still going to college. So this is really unbelievable that you're able to balance both
Full-time student and part-time employee.
So I am really curious. All right, I gotta ask a question here. Being a parent myself, and I can only imagine your parents. They were so proud of you. You're going to LSU. You're getting a degree in petroleum, a nice, safe career, and everything. And then you drop the bombshell on them that, you know what, I'm going to pursue my dream and go into radio broadcasting. I'm curious how your parents handled that.
Well, to be honest, they loved it because they knew that, me sitting behind the desk crunching numbers was not me, because I am so outgoing and so enthusiastic. And so they were like, look, in the long run, this is going to pay off for you. And they were so supportive and so, I've been blessed because they were, they worked hard their entire lives to save up and be able to send me to college and pay for my college. So I never had, not a dime has had to come out of my own pocket. So super blessed and thankful. But they have been so supportive the whole process. And I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for the love and the support that they gave me after that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And being a parent myself, my kids are a little bit younger than you. I've got 11-year-old twin girls who are actually a guest on the show a few months back. We actually created a resume for an 11-year-old.
That's cool.
And we had a lot of fun doing it. And but I feel the same way as a parent. And for those of you parents that are in the audience, I believe life is too short. And it's so important to be able to pursue something that you can be truly passionate about. And I give your parents tremendous kudos for being so supportive, because not all parents would be that supportive.
No, one benefit too of the whole transfer as well was, LSU was $35,000 a year. Sam Houston's $10,000 a year, so they liked that factor too. But yeah, they were concerned about my happiness because they would see me come home for holidays and stuff like that, and they'd be like, "Oh, how's school? How's LSU?" And it's like, it's school, and I didn't have a love for it. But now when I go home and I tell them, it's like, "Oh, I'm working on this project, I'm doing this, and I'm working for the radio station up there at school, and I did play-by-play for their football team up there."
Did you really?
Yeah, it was awesome. And so I'd come home every week with just a new story and just a newfound enthusiasm for what I was studying and how much I loved what I was doing.
That's incredible. Yeah, I have to say, one of my dreams has always been it would be cool to be like a baseball announcer or something like that, and so to be able to do a play-by-play for football, that had to be a blast doing that.
Oh, it was so. We did baseball as well and basketball as well. So I did it for a full year. My junior year, my sophomore year. I did it for a full year, baseball, basketball, and football. And I mean, it's so different than what you think. You get in there and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is going to be simple. And how fast paced, even baseball, how fast paced it is, and how quickly you've got to be able to think on your feet and come up with good content, as well as properly report what's going on the field.
Yeah, I gotta believe. I'm curious from you, which is the toughest sport to do play-by-play on, because it's interesting. Growing up, I grew up in Chicago and grew up as a Cub fan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had Harry Carey as a broadcaster for many years. And one of the things he was known for is just babbling off with all sorts of stories and everything, while, in between pitches and stuff like that. And, somehow he always filled that dead time and when there were rain delays and stuff like that. And, I'm curious from your perspective, which was the toughest to do the play-by-play?
Well, baseball was tough because it is a slower game as far as the process of it goes, and so you do have to fill the dead time in between. But that's where it becomes challenging, because you can't just necessarily go off on nonsensical tangents, right? You've got to be able to capture the audience with what you're talking about. But the toughest by far was basketball.
Really? And why is that? Because of how fast-paced?
Yeah, I mean, it's just nonstop. And so, especially with Sam Houston, I mean, they run a very fast-paced offense as well. And so that's a challenge. But it was also, I think, one of the most rewarding ones as well, because it pushed you to a new limit that football and baseball didn't push you to.
So I'm curious, like, what kind of preparation you have to put in before the game, because I gotta imagine it's difficult trying to remember who all the players are, memorize the numbers and the players' names and stuff like that.
Weeks of preparation. I mean, we would start for a football game. I mean, you got one every Saturday, so we would start probably 3 weeks before a game, and we'd go through. We'd call up the coaches of the other team. We get a starting roster and a full roster, and then for the week before the game, and we'd start studying for up till the week before the game. We'd call the coaches again, get it confirmed that nothing has changed, no injuries or anything like that. And then for that full week, it was just constant, and we would quiz each other. It was 3 of us, and we were on a little rotational team. And the 3 of us would quiz each other. I mean, we would go all out to make sure that we knew we had these names memorized.
Wow. Hey, it's interesting, because as a fan, you never really think about the amount of work that goes into something like that. But I can't imagine. So 3 weeks before a game, I would have never dreamt that.
3 weeks prior, and baseball and basketball are a little more challenging because there's more games.
Right.
But you also play the same team, multiple times. So
and there's fewer players.
Correct,
too,
right? And there's fewer. So instead of having the 60 or the 53 on the roster for football, you've only got 16 for basketball, or I think what's the collegiate? I think it's 21 for the collegiate baseball. So yeah, not nearly as bad. And they play each other, more than once in a season. So that second time comes around, it's not as bad. You don't have to study, I guess, as hard. But storylines change definitely with that throughout the season with teams too. If something comes up with a player on another team, you've got to learn that before you come back up and play them again for a second time.
That's neat. And I'm also curious, what's your favorite sport?
Well, my favorite sport to watch would be hockey, and my favorite sport to play would be lacrosse. I know that's 2 Yankee sports, and I was a Texas boy, but...
Yeah, I was just going to say, we don't even have a hockey team. That's one of the things I miss, because I grew up being a Blackhawk fan.
Which, unfortunately, they just got swept, and it was not pretty.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Well, I can't talk. I'm a Bruins fan, so my dad is from Massachusetts originally. And,
okay.
And he moved down here when he was 16, but they were Boston Bruins, Red Sox. And actually, the Red Sox and Cubs are playing this weekend. I'm really looking forward to that series.
Oh, yeah. 2 classic teams with 2 of the best stadiums in baseball.
Oh, yes.
That's for sure.
I mean, but I love all sports. I'm a just sports fanatic inside and out.
That's really neat. Well, one of the things that I'm real curious about is, so how many students are in the broadcasting program?
Well, it's quite large, and I mean, for those listening and don't know anything about the Sam Houston Broadcasting department, their mass communications department, Dan Rathers, the famous Dan Rathers, graduated from Sam Houston. And
really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, and their mass communications building up at Sam is the Dan Rathers building, and he does a lot of work still with. He brings in one intern from Sam every year, and they follow him, and those allow him to kind of allow that intern to learn from him. But as far as the amount of students, I'm not entirely sure, but it's their third most popular major on the campus, behind business and criminal justice.
So would you say there's maybe 1,000 students or something like that in the program?
It might be a little bit more, but not a whole lot.
So I'm curious then, with that many people in the program, I got to believe hundreds of people would want to get a broadcasting position. I mean, if I had a major in broadcasting, I would love to be broadcasting the football games and baseball.
Well, we had to audition.
So I'm curious, how did you go about getting that job, and what were the hoops that you went through to be able to get that?
Well, so before I go into that, let me answer this with that. At Sam Houston, for those students who say that, oh, it's an okay school or it's not the greatest school, it just means that they're not putting in the effort and getting involved, because Sam Houston does so many things like the broadcasting, and they allow their students. I mean, they've got a full functional operating radio station that broadcasts on FM, and then they've got one that broadcasts on AM, and then they have their own television studio. So, and they do things with students to get them as much hands-on experience as well as classroom experience. And so if you don't enjoy your time at Sam, it's just because you're not getting yourself involved. But they had a flyer out, and they said, come audition for the play-by-play, and they sat me down in the room and put on a basketball game, and they said, all right, go. And I went for probably about 10 minutes, and they gave me some critical feedback and said, here's what you can improve on, and we'll get back to you on our decision. And I got a call about a week later, and they were like, yeah, hey, you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. So
That's awesome. So what kind of practice and preparation did you put in for that audition?
To be honest, I would just record football games, put it on mute, and practice with that. And the funny thing is I was so shocked when I walked in there and they put on a basketball game, because I was like, oh no, but I know enough about sports to where it didn't hurt me, right? So, but yeah, I was like, so.
Well, and that's a real good point for those folks in the listening audience. That you're going on job interviews. Let's face it, a job interview is an audition.
Yeah.
And no matter what job you're going for, and it's so important to practice, and but you're always going to get some sort of a curveball thrown at you. I don't think I've ever been on an interview without at least one curveball being thrown my way, and it's so important. And the way to be able to handle those curveballs is through practice and preparation and trying to anticipate as best you can. And so that's really awesome. And so one thing I'm curious about, like when you were auditioning for the radio, for the broadcasting, did you have to have a resume?
Well, no, because it was for students, in the mass communications department. So they didn't really care about if you had the background. Anybody could come out and audition, and that's it. They wanted it to be kind of an open door policy, and it was like, hey, if you want to audition, come out and audition. So they didn't ask or require a resume to perform the audition. Awesome.
Well, when we come back from the break, I want to drill down into how you found out about the position here at irlonestar.com and learn about that interviewing process. And so I am just enjoying this immensely. So you're listening to Your Career with Todd Bermont on 104.5, 106.1 from beautiful downtown Conroe, Texas. Stay tuned.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. Broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Welcome back to Your Career. I'm your host and resident career expert, Todd Bermont, and we are coming to you live from beautiful downtown Conroe, Texas on Lone Star Community Radio, and just having a ball today with our special guest on the program, Jake the Intern.
I don't know if you can quite call me special, but
Well, I'm just thrilled to have you on the program, and I'm really enjoying this because, being a broadcaster was kind of a dream of mine, throughout my life. So the fact that you've actually lived that kind of a dream, that is just awesome to me. And so I'm really curious. So you're broadcasting sports and stuff like that, and what drove you to then want to try to find a position here at the radio station, and how'd you find out about it?
well, the funny thing is that anywhere that I want to go, and I mean, to be honest, I want to do sports broadcasting more than maybe say DJ or talk. I mean, I want to do talk radio. That talk sports broadcasting radio is what I really want to do, and everywhere that I looked that had an open position and an opportunity for me to apply to and fill out an application and go through the whole process, if I was even awarded a chance at an interview, I was always told the same answer: you just don't have enough experience. And I got told that over and over and over again, and so I left one interview, and the lady, it was a follow-up interview, and the lady was so sweet about it, and she just, she was like, look, I know we brought you in here for a second one, and it was kind of just to be formal about it, but, you just don't have enough experience for us to really bring you on. And I was not, after I left the interview, got in my car, I was furious. And I had said, look, I'm going to call up every small station I can find, and I'm going to find me a job. And I called up Lone Star Community Radio Station, probably the second one I called too, and our station manager, wonderful Dick Schissler, answered, and he said, "Look, come in on Tuesday, and I'll see if I can't help you out." And next thing I know, I'm Jake the Intern.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, that is such a great story for anybody in this listening audience. I don't care what profession you're in, because I can't tell you how often, because I teach an online class that's offered through a lot of community colleges across the country, 12 Steps to a Successful Job Search. And every month I get questions from folks saying, well, everybody wants experience. I don't have experience. It's like the chicken and the egg thing. How am I going to get the experience when nobody will give me a chance to get that experience? Yeah. And just the fact that you got so torqued, mm-hmm. and you said, I'm just going to, try every small station and see what hits. That is awesome. And that kind of tenacity is really the kind of tenacity that everybody in this listening audience should have. It's awesome. And, so I'm curious. So when you called the station manager, Dick, what kind of a script did you use or line did you use? How'd you approach him?
I mean, I kind of use that 30-second elevator pitch that, most hiring professionals will advise you to kind of have memorized, and I've been to career fairs at SAM and other places like that where I've had to use them. But yeah, I just have my little elevator pitch that simply states my name and where I'm coming from and what I'm looking for and what I can offer.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. How about being a little more specific on that elevator pitch? Do you remember what you said? Or I know it was a little while back, but, reasonable facsimile thereof. I'm curious.
Just, good afternoon, sir. My name is Jacob LaFleur. I'm calling around trying to find an opportunity where I can either intern or work a part-time position for a radio station. I have experience currently at Sam Houston's radio station, where I am also currently going to school, and I would just love an opportunity to give you a copy of my resume, and that way you can further see my expertise and my experience, and maybe we can talk about having an interview from there.
Awesome. So those of you who couldn't write fast enough that script, we do have our podcasts out there, and the radio station, irlonestar.com/yourcareer. You can listen to the podcast. You can listen to it on YouTube and SoundCloud as well. And that's just a great script, and right to the point.
Yeah, that's what I've always been told about those elevator pitches. That the more time you waste of theirs, the more they're going to forget you.
That's right.
And they've got to deal with how many X amount of people. They want somebody who's going to get down to business and who's not going to BS them. Because if you're going to BS them there, then you're probably going to BS them on the job too.
That's absolutely right. People can see right through it.
Mm-hmm.
Us hiring managers, we like to think that we have a pretty good BS filter.
Most of y'all do. I would have to say most of y'all do.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Okay, so what did your resume look like? You're a student at Sam Houston, and you're trying to get the experience. So what are some of the things you put on the resume?
Well, my resume, if you go on my home computer, it has like 5 final copies of it, and every one of those copies are different. The 5th and final version is one that has been vetted and reviewed by my mother, who is the CIO for a company. Has been vetted and reviewed by my brother, who is the head project manager for Baylor Medical School down in Houston, and went through the Sam Houston's resume filter that they have people that'll look and review your content and advise you of how to correct it. So it went through just a bunch of different people, and it had all of my work experience over the last, basically since I got into college, which featured 2 internships with oil and gas companies, CCI Oil and Gas in Houston, and then Intermec Mechanical Services in Houston. And I did 2 different jobs for both of those companies. So, I had that on my resume, as well as when I worked at the Woodlands Country Club and got to play a lot of free golf. But I worked very hard there as well. And yeah, now I have, then obviously the play-by-play stuff as well for Sam. So now I have Lone Star Community Radio Station to be able to add on to it.
And did you put like some of your classes and projects you worked on in your classes as well on the resume?
Yeah. So I've found that my mom would suggest it. She said, why don't you put some of the classes that would be relevant for what you're doing? And I've done radio broadcasting 1 and 2, TV and film editing 1 and 2. And so, I included, all those classes on there and the different softwares that I've learned through schooling down in my qualifications, as well as all the Microsoft Office stuff that, I have the ability to do as well.
So what other software is relevant to getting into radio and broadcasting?
Well, I mean, it's not a whole, I mean, if you can go get Adobe and, buy the whole Adobe package, then that's great, but it's extremely expensive. And so Sam Houston is awesome because they have all the Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Audition, all the stuff that I use right now at the station at Lone Star, they have up there that I can use 24/7.
Really?
And they pay for, it's part of our tuition that we pay to, take these classes and use the software. But, for them to update it as well, as constant as every new edition that comes out, they take care of us there. No doubt about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because, you think of Sam Houston and, a lot of folks view it as, well, it's local state school, small school. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of times you can get a better education at a smaller state school or even community college than some of the big league universities.
Yeah, and for some people, those big names, those UTs and those A&Ms, that's great, and that carries a lot of prestige, along with it. But for, people like me, I do better in more one-on-one situations, and the smaller class sizes that I got at Sam, that fit my personality better. And now that I'm in my actual major, I don't have a class that's larger than 20 people, and that's huge for me.
That's awesome. So what was one of the toughest questions that Dick asked you on the interview?
What was one of the toughest questions? He asked me what and the question that I consistently get asked in an interview is what I like to do in my spare time. I don't never really know how to answer that, because what I like to do in my spare time is really either play golf or sit on the couch and watch sports. Which is not very interesting. So, Todd, is there an appropriate answer? Is there a good way to answer that question?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to answer that question, and a lot of times what it helps is to do some research up front on LinkedIn of the folks that are going to be interviewing you.
Okay, I never even thought about that.
And see if in their what kind of groups that they belong to on LinkedIn, and look at their background on their profile, and sometimes people you'll see based off of their profile that they might have interests in certain areas, and if some of those areas are in alignment with some things that you're interested in, then that's a real good hot button.
Is it important to put, like, on your LinkedIn account, is it important to put your interests like that, your hobbies and stuff outside of your work?
I think it's good to do that. I mean, the resume, it's not appropriate.
Yeah, no, not on the resume, but
on the LinkedIn profile, I say yes. And the reason for that is the LinkedIn profile is kind of almost like an online book about you, an online living document about who you are. And, obviously you don't want to put stuff that may be offensive to people on your interests and stuff like that. But, if you like playing sports, and you mentioned you like playing lacrosse.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with putting that on your LinkedIn profile, because I know as a hiring manager, I used to like to hire people that played sports.
Oh yeah.
Because I found that I hired salespeople, and and in sales, it's a game every day. It's a game.
They're usually more outgoing too,
and it's competitive, and bottom line is, like, when I'm competing for the design and build out of a data center, there's only one winner.
Yeah.
So I don't get paid a commission if I don't get the sale, right?
Correct.
And we're in even in sports, professional sports, you still collect your huge salaries even if you come in second or third, but in sales you have to come in first. Yeah. And so I found that folks that played sports tend to do really good in sales, and also I find that veterans do really well in sales as well, and a lot of veterans don't think to get into the sales arena. And in fact, in a couple weeks we're going to have a veteran of the Army on this show, and we're going to dedicate the show to veterans, and we're going to talk about the challenges that veterans face when it comes to integrating into the civilian workforce, and talk about some ideas about that. And we're going to have that show in 2 weeks.
Ah, okay.
And but anyway, when we come back from the break, I want to dive in more. I understand there's some other exciting things on the horizon for you, and I'm really curious to learn. So you are currently listening to Your Career on Lone Star Community Radio. This is Todd Bermont. Stay tuned.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your question. Get seen on TV or YouTube and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Sponsor your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm your host and resident career expert, Todd Bermont, and we are coming to you live from beautiful downtown Conroe, Texas, where this weekend there is going to be Kids Fest. Definitely come on down on Saturday. There's going to be all sorts of great stuff going on in town here in Conroe. So we are talking with Jake the Intern, and Jake asked a great question before the break about how do you know what to say when they ask you, like, what are your interests outside of work, and what do you do to keep busy? And I kind of answered the question partially, but not fully. One of the things I'd also like to clarify is when you're in the interview room, especially if you're interviewing in the person's office, a lot of times you can get clues about a person's personality based on what's hanging on their office walls. If they're into sports, sometimes they're going to have a picture of the local sports stadium or of the local team. or if they're family oriented, they may have pictures of their family on the desk. So you can definitely look to the office. Some folks, you can see their golf clubs in the corner of the office. So you can look for cues. Now, I definitely would never advise that you make up anything. It's important to be honest, but try to see if there's some areas of common relate, or if not, to focus on some things that would be relevant. So the fact that you want to get into sports broadcasting,
Yeah.
The fact that one of the things you enjoy doing is watching sports.
Yeah.
That's a great thing when it comes to sports broadcasting. One way you could embellish upon that a little bit is to say that one of the, I'm kind of crazy when it comes to watching sports. Not only am I watching it for the game, but I'm really listening to the techniques of how people are broadcasting those games, and looking for the different personalities, and looking for how those successful broadcasters are separating themselves from the pack, and what do they do differently? Like I think of like Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He is a great commentator. And then who's the guy that was the quarter? Phil Simms.
Phil Simms.
He gets he grates on my nerves.
He does.
After a
He
while.
does get on my nerves too.
But like Troy Aikman, he's just great. And then you got people like Joe Buck and
say it ain't so, Joe.
Yeah,
say it ain't so.
I'm not sure there's ever been maybe Vince Scully used more cliches than Joe Buck, but
But Vince Scully made it into an art, and
yeah.
Joe Buck just rambles to ramble.
Yeah. So that's one of the, as usual, I got off on a tangent here, but that's one of the ways that you could kind of embellish on the fact that you're not just sitting on the couch watching sports, but you're looking at it for techniques of the different broadcasters and stuff like that, and that'd be a way to bring it in.
Yeah, that really helps.
And I'm really curious. What's the next step? So you got this gig here at the radio station. Is there more on the horizon?
Well, I start actually on this upcoming Tuesday. I go in for my training day and to fill out the I think it's the I-9 for my new job at Fox Sports headquarters here in the Woodlands. And don't worry, guys, I'm not leaving the station. That's going to be a nighttime position. But yeah, I'll be a freelance, so basically a part-time employee there, editing for their highlight program, their highlight packages.
Now, are you going to do that just over the summer, or are you going to do that during the school year as well?
Well, I have worked my schedule now down to where I really only have online classes left. So
really,
I'll my goal or my plan at the moment is to do Lone Star Community Radio Station 4 to 5 times a week, and then to do the Fox job will be 4 to 5 times a week, and then to have basically a half load, so 3 to 4 classes.
I can tell you right now, Jake, that you're never going to have trouble getting a job. and as a hiring manager, just hearing your dedication to what you're doing, the fact that you're going to hold down not one, there's a lot of students that go through college that never work a day while they're in college. And they come out of college with this entitled mentality, and they lack soft skills. And I got to give you kudos. The fact that you're going to hold down not just one, but 2 jobs while going to college at the same time, and the fact that you have a vision about what you're doing with your career and you're being proactive with it, that is just awesome. I mean, I can see you like having a show like Dan Patrick or something like that.
That's the dream. But the reason why I want to do it the way I'm doing it, and I could finish if I wanted to by December, but I'm pushing it personally back to next August, and the reason why is because I don't ever want to go into a job interview again and be told I don't have enough experience. So I don't mind putting in the little extra effort and hard work at this job and at the Fox job while going to school, if that means that I never hear you don't have enough, experience ever again.
That's awesome. And again, folks who are listening, I want you to hear that tenacity. because that's what it takes to succeed in this world. People that sit on the fence get splinters, and it's so important to figure out what it is you want to do. Take the world by the what, and go out there and get it done. And Jake, I got to give you a lot of kudos because you're doing that. So I'm curious how you found out about the Fox opportunity, and how you wound up getting that job.
Well, actually, they were part of the original crew that told me you don't have enough experience, and they had one opening available for the freelance position, and they gave it away to somebody else. And the hiring manager, who's now going to be my boss, was very polite, and he was actually one of the few people that personally called me back and said, "Look, I really like you, but this guy just was a better option, and I'm going to keep your resume on file, and the next available position that comes open, I'm going to call you." And sure enough, a month later, I was out fishing on the lake and got a phone call, and he said, "Yeah, do you want the job?" And I nearly jumped out of the boat and was like, "Yes, yes."
Well, and that story in itself is just so motivational too, and it shows the importance of you always want to be respectful to the folks that are interviewing you, even if it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to up front. You clearly never want to burn any bridges in this life if you can avoid it. And, so obviously the fact that you left a really positive impression, and obviously you had to have been professional and cordial in the initial rejection for them to want to follow up with you a month later. That's awesome.
I mean, I've always been, taught, it's such a cliche, treat others how you want to be treated. But in this sense, in the business world, you just never know when you're going to run into somebody again. And, whether it's in a professional setting or not, I mean, if you treat somebody that, then, 5-10 years down the road, you happen to have another interview with them, that could just immediately cancel that job out for you, and I just don't want to burn any bridges.
Well, and that's so true because right now at Evolve, the person I report to, the person that hired me on a few months back, used to work for me.
Yeah, you said that I think last week, and I couldn't believe that. I thought that was
so I had a job a couple years ago as national sales manager for a division of Toshiba, and my boss John worked for me at the time, and we just had a great working relationship. Had tremendous respect for him. And then I left the industry to pursue my own business for a couple years, and then John came calling, seeing if I might be interested in coming back in the industry. So now I work for John. So and I'm loving it.
Well, see, and that's the thing. In a professional setting, you never know when you're going to have that bridge to cross again, and you never know when you're going to come across somebody else. And so, I mean, especially in a dog-eat-dog world that the broadcasting industry is.
Exactly.
It can only hurt you, right?
So we only got about a minute left. I'm curious, Jake, if you have any final words of advice for our listeners.
Final words of advice. Well, I'm only 23, and I'm still young, and I'm still learning as I go, and I'm sure there's going to be speed bumps as I go along. But all I can say is no matter what speed bump, you hit, just keep going. I can't tell you enough, how hard of a year this last year has been. I lost my best friend. I broke my leg, and I had just a tough year, and I kept pushing, and I never gave up, and I never quit. And just to all those listening out there, I implore you to do the same. Just never stop fighting.
Well, Jake, I can't thank you enough. This has been your career with Todd Bermont. This was one of the most motivational interviews that I've had since doing this program,
Glad
and you're going to do awesome throughout your career. So stay tuned next week for another broadcast of your career. In the meantime, come down to Kids Fest, downtown Conroe, and have a successful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out this recording from Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station and broadcasted live from Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. Interested in sponsoring this show, being a guest, hosting your own show? And please visit us online at irlonestar.com and check out the Contact Us page. We want to say thank you to our studio supporters. Our traffic sponsor, Conroe Americana Music Festival at ConroeAmericanaMusicFestival.com. For more information about the show, please check out the information below in the description.